Hey, this is Stephen Amell, and you are listening to Tomorrow's Legends, the podcast. Don't fail your city.
During a trip through time, the Legends were forced to land the Waverider in Blue Valley, Nebraska, where they discovered a young superhero.
Yes.
About to take flight.
That's cool.
Who are you?
I'm Stargirl.
Welcome back, Cosmic Crew. We're trapped in Blue Valley thanks to this awful weather. Gideon is frozen up and her engines aren't engaging. Are you okay out there, Gideon?
If you haven't noticed, the ship is in desperate need of maintenance.
Well, don't worry. We'll get you patched up as soon as we can. It's been a rough week, and I am, is it cold in here? The Flash.
And I'm cold as ice, Dreamweaver.
What? Again?
And now, here are your hosts, the Scarlet Speedster himself, the Flash, the Maid of Mischief Harley Quinn, and the Blue Beacon of Hope, X-Force 11.
Hello, Legends.
Okay, Gideon, enough with the niceties. What is going on here? You let another person onto our show. You're letting all the riffraff in. First you let in the Chameleon, and now Dreamweaver? What's going on?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course you don't. Well, welcome to the show, Dreamweaver. She is stepping in for Mr. X-Force 11 because he is busy, and, you know, Harley is still on baby duty, so she's not ready for the show just yet. So we are much appreciated to have Dreamweaver stepping in and helping out the show.
Yes, I'm happy to be here helping out.
Awesome stuff. This is a good practice run for you. You've got your own podcast just starting up and getting going, so hopefully we can get you some experience and get you ready for that.
Yes, yep.
Awesome stuff. Well, let's dive into the news first.
We interrupt this podcast for a special report.
Yeah, so X-Force was kind enough to fill up our news section with a bunch of things that were coming, so we're going to just let you guys know what's happening. Don't forget, Legends returns next week, Wednesday, October 13th. I believe it's 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm not sure, but Wednesday is when it's airing, and we will be recording our Legends show on Friday. So that means feedback is due Friday at 7 p.m. So that'll give me an extra hour to get it all in there before we start recording. So Legends next week on Wednesday. That's pretty exciting. It's back already.
Oh, yeah, that felt like nothing. We just ended.
Yeah, exactly. It has not been much of a break. So, but they're really just getting back on their regular schedule that they've been on for all these seasons. You know, fall season.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah.
And with that, the news just broke that for their 100th episode, Mr. Captain Cold is returning, a fan favorite for the 100th episode, which I believe airs October 27th. And I am so excited about that, to have, you know, Leonard Snart back on our show. It's apparently going to be looking through the eyes and memories of Gideon. So I guess she's going to be looking back on her time she spent with Legends, which is kind of an interesting concept.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a really strong premise for an 100th, to be able to look back at all those moments through all the seasons and to just get those extra character interactions that we might not have been able to see along the way.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I wonder if there's going to be some, you know, tear-jerking, heartbreaking moments if we see Mick have to deal with saying goodbye to him again. Like, I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to do, but it's I'm just very thankful that they're bringing him back because he was a fan favorite.
Me too. It's I've missed seeing Wentworth Miller playing Captain Cold.
Yeah, exactly. And the next bit of news is Joel McHale, who plays Starman, has been promoted to series regular with Season 3 of Stargirl. So X-Force seems to think his wish for older JSA members to come in and train our crew might be coming true. I don't know. What I'm thinking is that at least there's somebody going to be around, because that's, I mean, if you're promoted to series regular, that means you're going to be around for at least half of the episodes. Series regular doesn't mean every single episode, as we've learned over the years of these shows. So we'll have to see what they do with this character. But you've got an interesting point here about that.
Yeah, I do, because I am not necessarily on X-Force's page there. I think that there's always the potential that tease of Starman being alive at the very beginning of the season could end up that's not actually Starman, the alive Starman that we know. I'm still not convinced that this isn't a shapeshifter or some villain just taking on the face of Starman.
Yeah, and when you said that, it reminds me of when we last saw him, when he went to the restaurant to check in with Pat's ex-wife, the waitress. He was really creepy and suspicious looking, the way he was behaving. And the way he, if you remember, we discussed it on the show, he checked himself out in the mirror, not to see that he was looking good. He checked himself out like he was like, does everything look right before he goes in? And that's why I agree with you that there's something different going on there, shapeshifter or a disguise, like maybe someone's got one of those real fancy, skin-like masks that they're wearing. I have no idea, but I'm with you. I don't think the real Starman is coming back. It's the actor playing the part, but I don't think it's the real Starman.
Right. That is where I'm at, too.
Yeah. And then after this episode, we're going to talk all about it. But we saw through the history, in the flashbacks, how Starman was, Sylvester behaved towards Pat. He was really weird and not the nicest guy. So that kind of throws a bit of a wrinkle into the idea that maybe the Starman we did see is him, because he doesn't seem like he's the greatest of people.
Yeah, that is true too. I know. We're going to talk all about that, but I'm still not entirely convinced.
Yeah, I'm more leaning that way as well. And the last bit of news we have is that it's been confirmed now, season 7 of Legends will be 13 episodes. So that's a little bit less than what we usually get. We're usually around the 15 or 17 number. So 13, it makes me wonder if this is going to be their final season and they're going to just try to crunch in a good solid 13 episodes like Stargirl gets, like The Mandalorian gets. A shorter season means tighter writing.
It could. That's a possibility. But I could also see it just being because of the really weird filming schedules that they've had the past year. They could be doing a shortened season just to give them a bigger break in case there is going to be a season 8 after this.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I guess we'll find out. We'll see. I mean, they announced season 7 when they announced season 6, so who knows if we're going to hear about a season 8 or not. We don't know.
Right. I feel like they tend to announce, or at least they have for Arrow and Supergirl, that they were going into their last seasons before they started. So I'm not sure with Legends.
Not sure. It's the last of the original shows really hanging on once Supergirl is done. Well, I guess there's Flash. Flash is still going, but it sounds like season 8 is going to be their last as well. So,
yeah, I'd be surprised if Flash keeps going too.
Well, we'll see how they do with this big crossover event they're kicking off the new season with. I mean, a big, event with a whole bunch of guest stars. It might be cool, or they're just going to go out with a bang. Let's end it on a high note.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm really excited to see Brandon Routh back, and a couple of the other characters. So I'm interested to see what they do. Yeah, me too. Well, let's get on with the show. I haven't been able to play this clip for a while. Letters lost in the timeline. And the reason I'm playing that is because I got a little bit of pre-show feedback. I've been getting some emails sent to my personal account from a longtime listener of Arrow Squad. Her name is Erin, and she used to write us wonderfully long feedback messages for Arrow Squad. And she's been emailing me lately about Stargirl, and I just have a couple points here about what she had to say. I thought it'd be nice to include her on the show. And actually, by the way, I mean, if you guys want to discuss the show with us, the hosts, behind the scenes, and not have it included on, the podcast, or you just want to talk and hang out, you guys are more than welcome to do that. Just let us know in the email. Just say, hey, I want to just talk to you guys personally, and we'll make friends that way. But anyway, so Erin's been going on about how much she loves Yolanda and would love to see her make a big comeback soon. She also believes Cindy is not dead, which is kind of in line with what we were thinking. She's going to come back soon. And that Stargirl, she thinks, is the best CW superhero show right now. She doesn't think anything else compares to Stargirl. So I just thought it'd be fun or nice to share some of her thoughts, since she's been emailing me quite a bit lately. Nice.
Let's get into this ratings and reviews. I'm going to let you go first. You're the guest host. Dreamweaver, what did you think of this episode?
All right. I gave this one 8.5 flashes in the flashbacks, even though there was just one flash. But the last few episodes have been fairly consistent for me. I know I gave last episode a little bit of a lower rating, but that was mostly just because I had wished that we had gotten a solo episode for both Beth and Rick to kind of explore their visions, those fears more like Yolanda got. And they ended up doing the same thing last season, in the first season, I should say, when they introduced them and gave them their superhero stuff. Yolanda had a solo episode, but then Rick and Beth shared an episode there as well. So I wonder if they're following a sort of structural pattern for these episodes. Mm-hmm. But I really like the direction of this one and all the new information that we got, both in the flashbacks and in the visions.
Right.
The transitions were really great. They had some really, really nice transitions here, some neat practical effects throughout it. And honestly, I really like the dysfunction and chaos that's happening right now because of Eclipso, and how this episode leaves off on a rift that Eclipso is kind of coming out on top right now. I'm hoping to see, moving forward, some really strong comebacks from characters reclaiming their power. Like if you remember last season, that the episode where Courtney picks up the staff with Pat and Barbara after she meets her real dad, and how powerful that scene was. I'm really hoping for some stuff like that moving forward in the season. Okay. But I also wouldn't be surprised if some people are left broken after these experiences and haven't found their way back to themselves by the end of the season either.
Well, and those are good points because this is a shortened season, and it was during COVID, and it's like a summer school season. It's like it's an interlude to the full-on story that we might get in season 3. So I'm kind of, the way, like you said, the way Eclipso is winning right now, and the dark side seems to be winning. It just makes me feel like this is the Empire Strikes Back of the 3 seasons of Stargirl. Like this is the middle season, and it's the dark side is winning. Because you're right, Eclipso is winning at every turn, and he's getting what he wants, and we'll talk about that in this episode. So I find that interesting. You give it an 8.5, and you're quite happy with it and stuff. Because I was wondering coming into this, like, oh man, we got Dreamweaver guest hosting. Like me, what guest am I going to get? Because we used to be 2 peas in a pod with everything, whether it was Superman, whether it was Legends or early Stargirl. We were agreeing on everything, and then something happened. It's like you turned into a carrot and fell out of the pod. Because we all of a sudden there was like 4 weeks in a row there we didn't agree on almost anything, and I thought, which version am I going to get tonight? Are we going to be at each other's throats all night, or are we going to be agreeing? And it looks like we're agreeing, because I also give it yet another 8.5 degrees below zero, and that's a string of 8.5s for me, because that's about where the show keeps landing week after week lately. It's really, really good stuff, but just missing that little push of awesome to get it into the 9s and the 10 ratings. So, but this one was a nice slow meltdown of everyone falling apart with this continuous ominous foreboding vibe. And like you were saying with Eclipso, like he's slowly gaining control over the entire town. It had beautiful direction once again, as X-Force said, is the same director, and you can tell there's seamless edits and seamless cuts and real smooth transition between scenes, the dramatic angles and the perspectives that she was giving with her camera movement and stuff. It was a beautiful episode to watch. And I think I'm going to be interested to hear your thoughts as we go through it on the way things were filmed, because that's what you and me always share in common is we're able to look at these episodes from a filmmaker's perspective. So this is going to be kind of fun. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Are you ready to get into it?
I'm ready.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
All right, well, let's start at the beginning this week with some Eclipso talk. Since we got a nice little history bit about Eclipso, it goes a few decades ago, as the title tells us. And we see Bruce Gordon already near the end of his adventure days, is what it looks like to me, and on the verge of losing it mentally. And we find out that his success is basically only because of Eclipso making things happen for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely looked like he was past his prime here. Past all of those points that we see in his adventure books that they were reading in prior episodes when they were doing the research on him.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out just how nice the set deck, the set dressing of his mansion, his office was here. It had a very cool, older aesthetic. It was giving off those Indiana Jones vibes that I know you've been kind of wanting, but we're not getting. And that book that Beth reads in the earlier episode when they are doing the research, it's there on Bruce Gordon's desk when they pass by. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Okay, cool. But you're right. It does have that Indiana Jones vibe to it. I felt like we were in Indiana's study. And, he's got all these little, things that he's collected from his travels and stuff all around the room. It did have that feel to it. And again, with the camera movement and, everything that was going on, it was a very cool opening scene. Now, Bruce Gordon doesn't want anything to do with Eclipso anymore, but he can't let the power go. Eclipso's taunting him like, oh, well, you just drop the diamond, let it go. But you can't. You love the power. So the only thing he thinks he can do is decide to grab a gun and end his life by shooting himself. Mm-hmm. But Eclipso doesn't let him. And Eclipso sees what's about to happen. And the way they've shown us all season long is that Eclipso is like a master of manipulation. And he uses the love of his life. So I'm assuming he's in love with her, but it's a woman named Mona who's married to somebody else. And he could never have her. So that is the perfect manipulation to get him to hand over control to Eclipso, because he starts saying, like, just go after her. I'll help you. We'll kill her husband and she'll fall into your arms. She'll be yours and you can do whatever you want with her body. Like, he was getting all creepy about it. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it was getting creepy a little bit there. I picked up on that too. And I think we've seen how evil Eclipso can get, but I think here it was just another aspect showing how evil he can get, because he's offering false hope to a man who's already hopeless. And, he has the gun in his hand, he's ready to shoot, and Eclipso gives him the hope that he can still find the love that he's lost in his life, only to then completely, take him over right there. Eclipso talks him back into his life, only for Bruce to end up losing it.
Yeah. Yeah, because we had no idea. I don't think we've really seen a full takeover like that either of, the way Eclipso just kind of completely possesses him. And I think I've got that point coming up here in a little bit. So, once again, the evil voice of Eclipso, it was working so well. And I know you guys have heard me and X-Force really picking on this, but Eclipso I loved all of that. The discussion with him and Bruce and the struggle he was having, it was done so well. And then we see his reflection in the mirror. I was like, and again, as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, you lost it. You just lost the scene by showing us him again. But I was glad that that's all we got, was just the quick little mirror scene. And it started making me thinking that I feel bad because I'm a fan of Nick Tarabay. I loved him in Spartacus, the 4 seasons of Spartacus that he went. He was fantastic, and he was even fun when he joined the Flash as Captain Boomerang. And I've seen him in a few other things. But he's a phenomenal actor and a lot of fun. But I just find that he's doing such a bad job playing Eclipso when he's in physical form. He does great with the voice, but when we see him in physical form, he moves in this weird, phony, herky-jerky movement that just reminds me of a bad mob boss in some cheap heist movie. He's bobbing his head around like a bobblehead doll, and he's being all twitchy and, like I said, herky-jerky. It's just not working for me. I don't know. What are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I'm not where you're at. It's not my favorite, but I'm also it doesn't pull me out. It doesn't affect my viewing. I'm fine with it.
Okay, that's good. I wish I could get there. It's just not. Yeah, like I said, he's like a scary elf from Fraggle Rock or something. He's not scary. Even Patty Spivot sitting beside me, I paused it and she's like, he doesn't scare me at all. I wish it would just be his voice. I'm like, see, that's what we're talking about on the show. But
yeah, I do agree with the half face. When he's taking over someone, that half face is a lot creepier.
Yeah. So speaking of taking over, here's the point I had. It appears that he's able to fully possess someone from within the diamond, and I'm guessing that's if he feeds on enough negative energy. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what it seems, is the negative energy and just the chaos from around him. We've seen a bit of it with Cindy, but we've also seen her kind of resisting and fighting back against him when he has taken her over. Yeah. With what we saw of Bruce here, I doubt that he had much motivation to try to fight off the possession, though. So I feel like in his case, even though we didn't see him at all after that, in the flashbacks. I feel like he's in Eclipso and he's just letting him take over.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He was pretty much at the end of his life there. He had given up everything, so there was nothing really for Eclipso to have to fight to take over. So you are right there. So now later in the episode, we get some info from Shade that Eclipso is a spiritual parasite and an otherworldly creature. And I don't think that's exactly what the comic book had him as. I'm not sure. You're pretty good with the comic book history, so I was curious what you thought there. And to me, if it's not like the comic book, that's good, because I don't like when we follow exactly, because then it's too predictable, and you've heard us say that 1,000 times on the show. The TV show, if it's writing it a little bit differently to suit the TV show better, then it's good. But do you know a lot about Eclipso and how accurate he is here?
I know some, not a huge amount, but I know that it is a bit different from the comic books, not exactly. So he was written as kind of a divine entity, so they never used the term spiritual parasite in the comics as far as I know in regards to him.
Yeah.
But he was kind of written as an entity that embodied the wrath of God or the fury of God, which is very similar to Spectre's origins, who's kind of in the same vein.
Right.
Which I know we'll have a note about the Spectre later on too. But spiritual parasite is a really interesting way to phrase what Eclipso is, I think.
Yeah, because he's sucking on all the negative energy of the people around the town, and he's putting them in these situations to make that negative energy grow. So I think it suits him. Spiritual parasite, yeah. It's a great phrase.
Yeah.
And that leads to what he's doing. Like, he's loving all the turmoil that he's causing in this poor little small town of Blue Valley. I mean, at the end of the episode, he's standing outside the house watching the family fight, and he's just laughing with glee.
Yeah. Yeah. That Milo, the little kid, continues to just be incredibly creepy.
Oh, yeah. Like, Nick Terabay should watch him for some acting notes. Like, seriously. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had this is a complete side note from the episode itself.
Sure.
But I was watching the Constantine series pretty recently, and one of the last few episodes in the show actually involves the Black Diamond. So shards of it that are spread over the Earth that are kind of lost. Constantine has one in the mill house that they're in, and then they tracked one down that's actually stuck inside of a doctor at a hospital. So there's no mention of Eclipso. Yeah, there's no mention of Eclipso, but the box that holds the shards glows black and purple in the show. So I'm wondering if that show had not been canceled, if at some point they would try to use Eclipso or bring him into the story on Constantine.
And Constantine was a perfect world to bring him in on too, because of all the dark magic and everything. That would be fantastic. Holy.
Yeah, and I feel like they would have been able to dig into really that kind of spiritual wrath of God side too, because they already had angels and demons on the show. Yeah, no, you're right. That, jeez, and while they're also bringing back Constantine, I think, in an animated form. So yeah, animated, and I think they're doing a new, I don't know if it's a movie or another show, but with not the Matt Ryan version, which I'm kind of upset about.
Oh, so it's a whole new Constantine, like a redo or a new version of him.
Yeah, as far as I know, which is why they couldn't use the character anymore on Legends. They had to write him out.
Okay. Interesting. Well, maybe they'll carry over some story into that. Or, well, no, I guess not. If it's a completely new thing, they probably wouldn't. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, because I watched Constantine not too long ago, and I don't remember the diamond shards. Interesting. Cool. Well, that's good info to know. I mean, these universes are all connected somehow, some way, a little bit. It'd be cool if we got a name drop. That would be fun.
Yeah, I was waiting for it the whole Constantine episode. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
But just in case anybody watched that show and wants the connection.
Well, we'll have to ask Harley. She just finished it. She was doing her little coverage on it here on our Legends podcast. So we'll have to see if she remembers that. Well, let's talk a little bit about Courtney here. It's funny. She wasn't a lot in this episode. She was, but she wasn't. I didn't find her role super deep this episode, but I'm going to start off because I'm curious where your thoughts are here. She's been up and down for me all season, and the part that's bugging me is her not listening to Pat. I find that is getting old fast. I mean, this 16-year-old, and we know teenagers are all like this. We were like that too. But her stubborn know-it-all attitude, I think, needs to get put in check because it's going to get her and her team killed. She's too young. She's too inexperienced to be running around thinking she knows it all. And I think it's going to get them hurt. And I've got a couple more points coming up about that, but I know you want to respond to that initial thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do agree with a lot of it. I think it's just one. We have to remember that we are dealing with teenagers here.
Yep.
Not quite as mature, and they're a little more temperamental than some of our other heroes on other shows. But I do have to defend her a bit because, yes, I do think that her plan of having just her and Beth go after Eclipso by themselves is not smart in the slightest bit. But I think she's acting, just from a place of fear and panic and not knowing what to do. And she's trying to be the leader of this team. She's just watched all of her friends and now her family's, getting beaten down by this villain that they have no idea how to defeat. And,
right.
And, any normal reaction to fear for like anyone, you kind of go into a fight or flight response. And I feel like Courtney seems to be squarely in the fight category. Yeah. And she is right. There is a moment where she tells Pat that they'll never be prepared enough for him. But Pat's also witnessed so many people around him die and get hurt, as we see in the flashbacks and so far on the show. So he has a desire to not put these kids in danger any more than they already are. But at the same time, like, he's in that realm of being close to holding them back, forever, just out of that fear of safety.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I'll agree with you there. I think that's coming from a fatherly side of things, is that he still sees them as kids, and they're still kids, so he doesn't want to put them in harm's way. They're not prepared enough. She does have a good point. They might never be prepared enough for him until they grow up. So it's kind of a weird balancing act, but I also like the point that you say that he has witnessed a lot of people die, and he's witnessed full-on adult superheroes not being able to fight this thing, and that's making him double down on not letting her go deal with this thing, and that's where it bugs me, is she needs to listen to the experience. Like, he's telling her, this guy has killed a lot of people, and fully trained adults. You're not experienced enough to take this thing on your own. And that's where I get a little bit frustrated. I know it's teenagers, but teenagers also aren't always stupid. Like, smarten up a little bit and listen, think through some things. You are growing into that transition of life into becoming an adult, so start to think about what you're doing. And it leads into my next point, which you brought up, that I find it just stupid that she thinks her and Beth can do anything at all against Eclipso when her entire team couldn't stop him. Like, why is she not making that connection? All of us were there at the cafeteria, and he took us all out. So how are me and Beth going to have anything to do, especially when Beth can't do anything really other than use her goggles? So that to me just bothers me that she's not making that connection, and she's thinking just the two of them can go fight him.
Yeah. I really don't know where they're gonna go from here. What their plan's gonna be, I'm not sure.
Well, I got a list here. Let's look at what they do have. If we're talking about just Courtney and Beth, what do they have that could help them in the fight? Okay, Beth's goggles can see through the illusions. Okay, well that helps Beth. She can't be taken control of, but how can she stop Courtney from being taken control of? How can she stop anyone else other than yelling at them saying, it's not real, it's not real? We've got the cosmic staff. Apparently, just by grabbing onto it, it can break you out of the trance that Eclipso has you in. So, okay, that's helpful, but that kind of stops Courtney from being in the fight if she has to run around continually tagging people with the staff. Mm-hmm. And then we've got Shade, who seems to be able to get through to you when you're in the trance and break the hold that Eclipso has over you. We've seen him do that a couple times now, and he did it with Barbara in this episode. So we've got those 3 defense mechanisms against Eclipso, but I'm still having trouble piecing that together, that Beth and Courtney can really use that to fight back. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that they can do it themselves. I think that they do need to still regroup and just try to figure out more information. And I guess they did get some more information from Pat now that he has revealed, the secret in the past with the JSA and how they took down Eclipso.
Right.
But it just right now feels very lose-lose from all sides, and I don't know what they're going to come up with.
Well, and then talking about the staff, I mean, Courtney keeps using the staff to help break people free. So it's never really getting to charge up fully. Like, we know that it's taken a long time to charge, and she keeps using those charges to break people out of it. So I don't know how much energy that's draining from the staff, but it just looks like she's not letting it charge up enough, and she's not going to be able to fight.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering if this is part of Eclipso's plan all along, if he intended to leave Courtney for last out of all the JSA members, since she's the one with the staff.
Yeah.
He's letting her watch all of her friends get hurt or quit or isolate themselves more and have her all panicked and unsure of what to do next. So while she's in this kind of panic stage, all she knows is that the staff can help other people out of their visions, out of their trances, using it, blasting Rick, getting Mike and Pat out of it this time. And with that, she is, sucking the energy any of the energy that's left out of the staff out of that. And it's basically going to leave her as a sitting duck if Eclipso comes after her now.
Yeah, she doesn't have a defense. But if you go back to that big fight scene in the cafeteria, when he breaks out of the diamond, she goes to attack him with the staff. He grabs it, and the staff is fully powered at that moment, and he sucks it dry. He drains it of all of its energy. So even a fully charged staff doesn't seem to be, I don't know what, unless she supercharges it somehow, it doesn't seem like the staff is powerful enough to take him on, because he drained it when it was fully powered.
Yeah. I mean, we're still holding out for Jade, Green Lantern, to come back.
Yeah, and it's like you said in your opening monologue, it's just like he's winning. It just seems like there's nothing that our team can do right now. He's got them all beat, essentially. Whether it's one-on-one or the entire team. Okay, well, let's move into Barbara a little bit here, because she had a few scenes in this episode. Now, Eclipso had the power to reach Barbara way out of town while she's on the road driving home. Like, she's way out in the countryside, out in the woods. And he's able to reach her. That, to me, was like, whoa, okay. Because we realize he's in town. He's able to grab a few people in a few different locations. But to reach that far out, that was surprising.
Yeah, I think it's part of just these little moments that get built up to really show how much Eclipso's power is growing with each episode.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it seems like wherever the storm is covering, it seems to be his envelope of power.
Yeah, and it's over the entire town now. So
exactly, and it's getting worse too. I mean, they were bracing for a massive storm. So
right.
Yeah. So
sending people home from work.
Yeah, exactly. Like
it's a big deal.
They're expecting a tornado to come or something because people are going down to the basements and stuff. So. Yeah. Now, in the scenes with Barbara, we got a cameo by Jordan, and I was so excited. Woohoo!
We did.
He's easily top 3 best bad guys in the Arrowverse, in my opinion. And it was just so good to see him and hear his delivery again, the way he talks. I love it. He's so crisp and so precise with how he speaks. And the way he was sitting in the back of the car, I don't know if I mentioned this on the show or not before, but he was giving off these Dolph Lundgren vibes to me. He's just got that look and the way he talks. I was like, he's very Dolph Lundgren-like. I wonder if he's a distant cousin or something. Because boy, oh boy, they're very similar to me.
Yeah, I loved seeing Jordan again. I mentioned it in my feedback last week. I was really hoping that Neil Jackson would make a cameo.
Yes.
And I was a bit worried when I didn't see his name show up in the opening credits, like we did when Brainwave and Henry were back. But I was delighted to see him show up. I heard his voice. We heard him before we saw him, and I was like, yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's so good.
It's in the car.
And it was such a good scene too, like just everything about him, and he was just the way he was just trying to manipulate Barbara and give her reasons to still join him if she would have. It was just really, really cool. But however, it's not really him. It is Eclipso the entire time. There's no doubt now in my mind that everything we're seeing, all these flashbacks of returning characters, it's all Eclipso. As we see when Shade sneaks in to the passenger seat and breaks Barb out of the trance, he tells her not to believe the illusion. It's not real. And that's our answer. There is no Icicle coming back. I hate that that's true, but it wasn't him, and he's not coming back.
Yeah, which is something that I brought up in previous feedback, and I think you guys have talked about before on the podcast, and it's all something I think we've been wondering, because we've seen little teases in earlier episodes with, the Icicle theme playing around Cameron, and the wind picking up every time Jordan's name is mentioned, and I'm thinking those must have just been clues that emphasize that this was coming for Mike's visions. In the same way that we saw Yolanda having her headaches and those memories of Brave Wave before Eclipso's vision. It was just foreshadowing to what could show up in the visions and add an ounce of believability to it. Even if at this point we all know all of this is Eclipso. It's just really neat touches, though, throughout the season.
Yeah, I think you got a good point there. They've been laying down the groundwork and essentially telling us what's coming and hinting at it. But it was done so well in the way that it got us excited that is there a possible return of Jordan? And it took a few episodes for us to figure out that, no, it is just Eclipso. Because, me and X-Force have been debating that back and forth. And he wants to think that, I initially said, no, these characters are actually there. It is Brainwave. And then I started shifting and I completely changed my mind to, no, it is all Eclipso. And he was still hanging on to the fact that, no, I think it's all three interlaced, but I don't know. I have a feeling it is just purely Eclipso now. Shade tells us so in that scene.
Right, and as much as I would like to see some of these characters back on, we might just not be getting that.
Yeah, we just might not. So now, a question, though, is why is Shade helping Barbara? He says, after he helps her, he says, go home. I need Emily. What could that mean? First of all, why is he helping her? And then what does he mean by go home? I need Emily.
Yeah. We saw in an earlier episode that Shade says that she reminds him of someone in his past. And we're not still sure exactly who that is still. So in my mind, I feel like he might be referring to like a sister or a close family member that she might remind him of. Now, there's no Emily.
Said,
yeah, there's no Emily related to him in the comics, as far as I know. And the way he said that line is really interesting, too. He says it starting out as a statement. I think he's telling her to go home. And then he says, I need, and that kind of fades off. And then when he says Emily, it turns more into like a surprised question or something that he's surprised. So in my mind, I feel like he might have saw who this Emily is. Or because I feel like he's hovering somewhere between life and death, or he's dipping in and out of the Shadowlands, just trying to hold on.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Because we know he was hurt and he was bleeding out. So is he healing himself in the Shadowlands? Because that's where his power comes from, according to Eclipso. So maybe he is being able to regain his strength slowly and heal himself. I don't know, because he is able to come in more so than he was before and essentially break her out of the trance and save her. So, but is he trapped there in a sense, trapped in his mind, trapped like is Eclipso also tricking and manipulating him, where he's seeing things and he's seeing whoever this Emily is and he sees Barbara as this Emily? Like it's interesting, and we don't know what's going to come of that. I need Emily. Yeah. Well, go home. I need Emily. It just doesn't make enough sense yet.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about the fact that Shade could be seeing visions too.
Yeah. Eclipso obviously is more powerful than him too.
Yeah.
Shade is scared of him.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just getting the sense that he might be kind of hovering somewhere in between life and death, trying to heal himself.
Yeah. And that could be too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, wrapping up with Barbara, because she didn't have too much in this episode. Right. I think for me, and I think we've said a little bit like this before, I just kind of hope that Barbara's storylines grow into something more. Yeah. And that not all of them are just revolving around a man and his wants or relations to her, except if it's Pat. It's better with Shade than where it went with Jordan last season, but yeah, I wouldn't be so happy if that's all they write for Barbara.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we've talked about on the show, her and Mike, they need something, but they really are the supporting cast, but they're even less than supporting characters because they're there to back up our main characters. It's just, but they don't even get that. They don't even have enough writing there to really be much of backup, and it's a shame. Barbara's the mom of Courtney, and why is it Pat that is way more involved with what she's doing than her own mom? That to me is what's weird, and they need to find a way to work Barbara in, other than being on a cell phone call with Pat while they're going out on a mission, and instructing him on how to take care of the kids. Like, that to me didn't work. So they've got to find something else to give her, and if she ends up becoming, like, maybe she can do a little bit of sleuthing into Shade's past and find out who this Emily is and dig into that. Maybe she can help Shade somehow. Then she's got something to do. She helps Shade. She helps save him and bring him back. And, they have this friendship with each other now. I don't know. It's really hard to think of where to fit her in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is weird that she's not so much being Courtney's mom. We haven't seen a lot of them together. Yeah. It's just weird.
It is strange. Well, let's talk about Mike now, since I brought him up. He did have quite a big part of this episode, and I found it interesting that his time with Eclipso just happens. There's no transition moment, and that's because Eclipso is already there in the house. He already had established himself in Pat's sequence, which we'll talk about, but he's already there. And because it's interesting, every time Eclipso has been showing up, there's been a very telemarked moment that it's transitioned into the Eclipso sequence. But here with Mike, it doesn't. It just happens.
Yeah, I guess if there'd be anything, it's when he's kind of listening outside of Courtney's room, and then you see his breath. I guess if anything, it would be that moment. But there wasn't like super, super clear transition or flash of anything like we've seen before.
I guess that's right. Yeah, when he's listening into Courtney's conversation and he walks away, he does breathe cold breath because he's cold. So, yeah, I guess if you have to put a finger on it, that would be the one. Now, it was interesting because last week we found out that Beth is 16, so I'm assuming Courtney is roughly 16, and we find out here that Mike is 15. And that surprised me. I didn't think he was only 1 year younger than Courtney. I thought he's 2 or 3 years younger than her, but I didn't expect them to be that close in age.
Yeah. I thought they were 2 years apart, at the very least. And I guess maybe school-wise they are, because I think Mike is just a rising freshman, and Courtney's about to be a junior once summer school is over. But that's really close in, like, age.
Yeah. So, and I wonder how old the actor is. I know Breck Basinger's 22, but I wonder how old the actor that plays Mike is in real life. We'd have to look into that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Now, interesting about Mike... You guys know I've been riffing on him all season long, even last season, but this episode, he actually wasn't annoying. I give him praise for his performance. He had great scenes, and he played them well. I mean, he was frozen with fear, and he quivered, and he was, like, legitimately scared. He did it well, so I'm definitely giving him praise this episode.
Yeah, I didn't mind him here either. And I'm in the same boat. I typically can't stand him that much. Just let the record show. He's probably my least favorite character in the show.
One thing we have in common again. Woo-hoo, we're back on the right track. So in his scene, we get Cameron. Cameron knocks on the door, pretending like he's, stuck in the storm and he had nowhere else to go. I gotta tell you, the actor playing Cameron wins the Creep Award this episode because, man, did he come off being deeply disturbed.
Yeah. Yeah. I had wanted to see a little bit of Dark Cameron, whether that be real or vision. And so I got that here. I'm kind of back and forth. I think Cameron works really well as kind of that in-between, going back and forth between the sides here, now that he is gaining his powers outside of the vision. Real right. Cameron. But I would like to see him more on the heroic side, because I do like Camney. I do like Camney. Or what do we call him? Ice Star on here.
Yeah, something like that. What was great about his scene, though, is when he came in, everything he said and the way he explained it to Mike and the way he turned dark, it was plausible and believable that he wanted revenge. It's like he's been struggling in the moments we've been with him, and we saw how he was getting upset every time Courtney would walk away from him, and so they kind of led into the possibility of him turning to the dark side, and that's why leading into the scene, it was very believable. I thought, you know what, this isn't Eclipso, and until we found out that it was, I would have bought it. I could have bought that this is Cameron just, you know what, I'm pissed, and now I know the entire story. I know the truth. You killed my dad, and I'm coming to hurt you. It was believable to me.
Mm-hmm. And he was very stoic. He was very much like his dad in this scene, the calm and very sure of himself. So that was a very cool nod to kind of see him almost walking in his father's footsteps there with his powers.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, good call.
Yeah, I think this one was interesting, exploring Mike's kind of fears in his vision. So we've gotten some scenes leading up to this that we see that he's guilty about killing Icicle's death. But I was really interested that they also tied it in with his feelings toward being abandoned by his own mother, and Cameron bringing that up in probably the creepiest way possible when talking about him losing his mom and then saying that he's about to lose Barbara.
Yeah, more creep factor, just piling it on there. It was crazy. And, you've got 7 more years with your mom than I got with my mom. And it was almost like a bully picking on a kid trapped in an alleyway. That's kind of the way Cameron was coming off. But the fact that they connected to Mike being abandoned by his mom, because I don't know if we got that in the story. We don't even know. I don't think Pat's ever explained to us what happened to his ex-wife, why they aren't together, and all we saw was her as a waitress in the restaurant. So we don't really know that story there, and it's interesting that Cameron is the one that gives us some info here. So I'm wondering if it's true or not, that she left them.
Right. Yeah, because we could just be seeing how Mike sees the story as being, a younger kid who lost his mom, but we don't know if it is abandonment, if Pat broke it off, if something else happened. Yeah, we don't know that story yet.
Yeah, so I wonder if this will come around again. I mean, there was a reason they showed that Jordan, shapeshifter, go visit her at the restaurant. There's a reason for that. So whether she comes back into it or not, I don't know. But I have to have faith in these writers that they're going to bring that around full circle. They seem to be doing that. So that can't have just been an empty scene for no reason.
No, I don't believe so.
But yeah, so speaking of Pat, let's talk about Pat here. Most of his stuff we got was him reliving the past and getting a lot of flashbacks. And I don't like the flashback scenes, but it's not because they weren't good. They were really good. It was really cool to see some history with the old JSA team. But why I don't like it is because I don't like the old team. I hated how they treated Pat. They gave him no respect, and they treated him like a 12-year-old. Especially that line that Starman gives, only team members can get to ask questions. Like, are you kidding me? Like, they're treating him like a kid. This team is awful. I did not like them at all. And I don't know if that's how they always are, or they just were that way because they just lost somebody. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was really strange, too. Especially for, on one hand, we have the knowledge that Pat may be the oldest of them. Because we know that he knew Sylvester as a kid. And I'm going to guess that Sylvester is probably around the same age as some of the other members. But also the timeline is just really screwy for the past on this show, because Rebecca McNider died in what to me seemed like the 60s, and it just says decades ago. It doesn't give an exact year or decade, but that should make the entire JSA way older than they are in the flashback the night the ISA killed them, which was only 11 years in the past, which we also know that the show is in 2021 as of present right now. So timeline's a little weird. Still not sure if that's ever going to be explained. But it's also weird the way they were acting, given that this show is built on and recognizing the legacy of the Golden Age JSA. It kind of feels like an odd choice to make them, such jerks in these scenes. Is it just for Pat's character development is kind of my question, because they're supposed to showcase these strong ethics and morals, which is what the whole to kill or not to kill debate is over in this episode. But they're just kind of treating Pat like dirt.
And it's interesting that you bring up that Pat is older than all of them, so they should not be talking to him like that, and he should not be reacting like, okay guys, yeah, whatever you say. Like, I don't get it how he fit into that position, and it was okay. That, like, they should be respecting him as an adult older than they are, but they just didn't. And yeah, you're talking about the timeline. Like, it is, Pat should look a lot older than he does here in our present time. If we're talking decades ago and he looks the same, and all those guys are younger in those days, then if it was decades ago, then you're talking 20 to 30 years have gone by. They should not look that similar to how they're looking in present time.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to get answers on any of that.
Yeah. I mean, this is Earth 2. Maybe Earth 2's time passes differently. I don't know. That's because, I mean, we've seen Earth 2 on The Flash and an Arrow, that Earth 2 is behind us in, I don't know how to word it, not so much technology, but lifestyle. I mean, it's 2021 here, or let's say on Flash, 2015 on Flash. We go to Earth 2, it's 2015, but everything looks like it's the 1950s still. So they're behind us in the way their world is evolving or going through the decades, but yet they're equal with us in the actual calendar and in the technology that they have. So it's really strange. So there might be something with Earth 2 and how time passes.
Right. We know that some form of time manipulation or time travel exists just because of the Seven Soldiers of Victory with Shining Knight last season, since he is from, Arthurian times, but also not explained at all.
That's another good point, yeah. Huh. Interesting. That maybe some of our listeners can help us dive into that and try to figure this out, because it is confusing. And the way when you just explained about all the different ages and time periods decades ago, I just got even more confused. I wasn't even thinking about that. I'm like, holy crap, you're right.
Yeah, I know we keep trying to look at for dates on the newspaper clippings, and there's just nothing there to show us. There's
nothing there, and they're all driving old cars but using cell phones. It's just, it's a bit wonky. It really is. Now, Pat's scene with Eclipso. Again, here's that telemarked moment. The moment Courtney walks away, there's no rose on the table as he's talking to her, but when she leaves and he turns back to the table, there's the rose, and boom, it's Eclipso time. That was the moment. That one was very clearly defined.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, that's cool. We know what's happening here. But man, that leads into probably the creepiest part of this episode. The coffin in the living room slowly creaking open with fingers crawling out like a spider. That was the hell no moment award-winning scene. I was expecting, because he closes his eyes like, nope, I don't believe it, this isn't true. I expected that when he opened his eyes, the little girl was going to be standing right in front of him, all charred and black and gross, and just give us that big jump moment. That's my horror movie instincts kicking in, but we didn't get it. I was expecting it, but we didn't get that moment.
Yeah, it was almost creepier just having the hand come out of the coffin. because you do think something's coming, and then it just disappears.
Yeah, and the way the fingers were moving, it reminded me of those face huggers from the Alien series.
Oh no, yeah,
yeah. So it's like, it was a really, really good scene, and I mean, props to Pat for being able to close his eyes and shut his mind off and get himself out of it for the moment. I mean, Eclipso still took over,
that moment.
But for that moment, he was able to get out of it. So yeah.
Yeah, and then we get more when he's in the basement. So he ends up pricking his finger on that yellow rose. And so he goes down to the basement to get a bandage. And he eventually sees Starman's uniform in one of his JSA
crates.
Crates, down there. Which, if you look closely, it has the same drops of blood that they show in the flashback when he gets back in the car.
Oh, right.
And then Pat literally has blood on his hands that won't wash out, which was a very Macbeth moment, if you're familiar with the play, with his manifestation of just his guilty conscience there.
Yeah, you're right.
I thought that was very interesting and very creepy. I think to have that blood not be able to go away, that would be freaking me out if that happened in a vision.
yeah, and that's another great horror movie tactic that just trips you out, and you put yourself in that character's shoes. It would be scary.
Mm-hmm. But I think one thing that stood out to me about this, all of Pat's vision and the flashbacks that we saw, is we get some more depth on his and Mike's relationship, and it's not super clear on the surface, but to me, it showed us that Pat started out as kind of Mike to the old JSA. He's an insecure fan that he just wanted to help out and be more involved with. And that's kind of how Mike is right now. He just wants more involvement, but Pat won't let him. And Pat's first big involvement with the JSA is to go kill a man. And Mike's first big involvement with the new JSA was to accidentally kill a man. Which is probably what Pat was trying to avoid with Mike joining in the first place, because he has all these, memories and guilt surrounding that. And now this season, we've seen him pretty distant with Mike. We've seen Mike and Barbara be closer this season, and that could be one of the big reasons why.
Excellent connection there, Dreamweaver. I hadn't even thought of that they're basically experiencing the same things. And was it you that in feedback had said that Mike and Pat are so much alike, and that's probably why they're not getting along and why they argue all the time?
I don't think that was me.
Yeah, one of our feedbackers had said that, and it's interesting. So that this all ties together, I think, and I think if they could just realize that, maybe it's going to take Pat to realize that, now that he's remembering all this stuff, maybe he's going to make that connection that, my first mission with the JSA, I helped them kill somebody, and now my son has killed somebody, and he's only 15 years old. He's got to be there, because obviously Mike is struggling with that, and I think Pat needs to be there for him a little bit more, because who is Mike going to for support right now to deal with? I'm 15 years old and I killed somebody. I mean, we saw Cameron get to him with that. That's what's bugging Mike, and we saw Cameron get through to him and be able to twist and manipulate that. So it's obviously bugging Mike, and I think a young mind, when it has to deal with this type of trauma, your brain can do all kinds of crazy things when it's trying to protect you. So this could have some dire consequences for poor Mike.
Yeah, because so far, every time he's brought it up, except for that one scene he shared with Yolanda talking about it, he's been brushed off. No one's really done anything for him when he's tried to bring that up and trying to talk about it.
Yep. Yeah, that is true. Well, we mentioned the flashbacks. Let's talk about those flashbacks a little bit here. The biggest thing that I want to talk about is John Wesley Shipp. It was so good to see him again on our Arrowverse shows. The moment he steps on screen and you hear his voice, it just brings a feeling of connection to the Arrowverse, and his presence brings depth and emotion to the scenes that he's in. And he's always done. He's done that from the first moments of season 1 of The Flash. He's just brought such powerful presence on the show and on our screens. And I loved everything that he did in this episode. It just really sucks that it was all in flashbacks. I mean, we had no idea. When it said Jay Gerrick is going to be on the show, John Wesley Shipp is back, we all thought, awesome. Jay Gerrick Flash is going to be there to help our young JSA team. And nope, it's all in the past. And that's probably all we're going to see of him, because if you listen to Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, Inside of You, John Wesley Shipp was just on it like 2 weeks ago, and he gave away that his appearance was only one episode. That was it. He said, I was up in Vancouver, I filmed one episode, or was it Vancouver or Atlanta or whatever? He said, I filmed one episode of Stargirl, and then I went back to what I was doing. So he kind of gave that away, that's it. That's all we're going to get of him. And that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I listened to that podcast too, so I heard that. But I really hope that writers decide to include him or write him into the future, because I know he would love it too. He said that he's really enjoyed playing Jay.
Yeah.
And he brought a lot of depth, as you said, a lot of depth to these scenes. He felt like, as soon as he walked in on that first scene in the cemetery, he felt like one of the leaders of the JSA, you know, stepping into these scenes with just authority and comfort in the character, as though this was his team and he knows it and he's stepping in with that.
Yeah,
and
I love how you put that.
Yeah, I really loved the blocking in that scene in the cemetery, in that first flashback. You know, when Pat first accidentally, he slips up and he calls him Flash in public.
Yeah.
And then Starman just berates him for it. And he says, no, we're in public, don't use those names. But then Jay just turns around on him and addresses him as Stripesy back. And that puts him just on the same respect level right away, that you can tell Jay respects Pat if all these other characters don't.
Yeah.
And then again, when Pat gets called out again for, you know, asking the question to Jay, and, you know, Sylvester's like, no, let the members ask. Jay, if you look, he's only looking at Pat when he gives the answer back. He's not looking at the other JSA members. So Jay, and then later, Jay makes sure Pat gets that vote when they're voting whether yes or no to kill Bruce. So I think it's just really, really nice character moments for him just for this one episode.
I love how you expressed all of that. It's so true that Jay respects Pat on an equal level. I love how he reaches out and puts his hand on his shoulder, and he holds it there for like quite a few moments. Yeah, Pat, you're with us. You're part of this team. I'm not looking down on you. And you're so right. The way they film those sequences, and even the moments in the cemetery when Pat is first walking up, you know, to the tree, when he sees Shade disappear, and it's a really, really wide shot. I mean, when Shade and Starman disappear, it's a really wide shot and shows the entire cemetery and the trees, and, you know, like it just was beautifully filmed the way they did that. And then the scenes with Jay Gerrick and these guys hanging out, it's just masterful stuff. I mean, I forget what the director's name was. X-Force gave it to us last week, but she really knows how to put an episode together. And I mean, if she's an editor, so she understands, and it's beautiful. I would love to see her take on more episodes for the show.
Yeah. Man, I can't remember her last name, but it's Andy something. Andy Armoridian? I'm going to get that wrong. But she also directed the premiere of this season as well.
Oh, she did? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So her name was Andy Armaganian, is the way it looks like to me. So I just want to see her come direct more episodes. And you said she directed the premiere? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She has found a groove and seems to know what she's doing. So fantastic job by far.
Yes.
Us little tiny filmmakers, you know, giving her props.
I know. Hoping that we can get there.
Yeah. Well, you're well on your way. I just do it for fun now. I don't think I have a filmmaking career ahead of me. I just do it for fun now. But you're well on your way. So let's talk about well, you never know. Let's talk about the JSA and their suits, because we've been bugging this show. We've been kind of picking on it every time we've seen the suits, how they look kind of cheesy, and even especially going back to the Golden Age, they look even more cheesy. But I think something changed in this episode. The suits looked way better and not so Golden Age cheesy. They looked actually like modern and new, and like, yeah, these are workable suits. Like, Jay looked amazing. Hourman looked fantastic. I think Hourman looked better than Rick's Hourman does. And the Wildcat costume looked way better than when we saw him in the last flashback scene when he came in out of the elevator and gave Rick heck. I don't know. They changed something.
Yeah, I thought they looked great. I thought they looked completely fine. They didn't look out of place.
Yeah.
And seeing them all together, especially with Jay in his, familiar Flash suit, I thought it was really, really nice. I think the flashbacks were filmed a bit differently. I think they had slightly different coloring. I think they were less saturated than our present-day scenes. Our present-day scenes seem to have a bit more of this really super bright kind of contrast to them. And I feel like they filmed them a bit differently to kind of give them that older Golden Age feel.
Okay. Yeah, I would trust your instincts or your eyes on that for sure. Whatever they did, it just looked a lot better. I think not even just the look in coloring and effects. I think they actually touched up the suits, like physically did something to the suits because they just fit better. Everything looked better about them. So Rick's dad as Hourman, I was happy to see this because I think all we saw as Hourman before was him out of costume when he's dumping his son in the truck or dumping him off, from the truck with their uncle and getting the hell out of there. And then we see Grundy destroy the car later. We've never really seen a lot of footage of him, so finally getting a bit of time with him as Hourman, I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, I think that was the first time we saw him in the suit, or at least have lines in the suit, and not just somewhere in the background in the action.
Yeah.
So that was neat to see him actually be part of the JSA and interacting with everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Now, something about him that I found really interesting, and this ties back all the way to the beginning when we were given our ratings. He says Green Lantern, Spectre, Dr. Fate, and the Hawks couldn't beat Eclipso. Now, I want everybody to think about that for a moment here. Dr. Fate, if you know him, he wears the blue and gold. He's got that golden helmet. And the Spectre, who Stephen Amell got to play in the big crossover Crisis event, who he became the Spectre. They are two of the most powerful characters in all of DC, if you know anything about DC characters. And those two guys working together couldn't stop Eclipso? So tell me how, then, a group of inexperienced teenagers with not even a fraction of that kind of power are going to stand a chance. Seriously, how? Let's dive into that, Dreamweaver. I'm curious what you think about that. Because when he said that line, I was like, there's no way that these guys can win. There's no way. I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm personally wondering if that was more of a fan service, name dropping them because they are original members of the JSA. Okay. And I will just say that the origins and power levels of Dr. Fate and Spectre were significantly different in their time in the Golden Age JSA than how we know them now. So there was a difference. They weren't quite. They were still mystical, but they weren't quite at the level they are now. But still, I am very much with you in, come on, Dr. Fate, Spectre, you've got someone who's the vengeance of God embodied, and you've got a Lord of Order, and they can't beat Eclipso. And that wasn't even Eclipso as we see him now. He was still in the diamond, just possessing Bruce back then. Not the Eclipso we have now, who's completely free of the diamond and growing stronger by the episode.
Good points. So now tie that into our young team, thinking they even have a chance. If they figure out a way to beat Eclipso, it's going to be a little bit unbelievable and a little bit tongue-in-cheek. We got to accept this because you can't present us with that type of information and then expect us to accept that these young teenagers with not even a quarter of the power are going to be able to. I hope they come up with something absolutely fantastic and believable, because otherwise I'm going to be a little bit disappointed in what they're trying to make us believe. I don't know.
Right. And the only thing, earlier I was saying that I wasn't sure what they're going to do, but I guess when thinking about the information that we did get about how they presented how they did kill Eclipso, or at least contained Eclipso, with that they needed to kill the host, so that he's powerless inside the diamond. He has no host right now, as far as we know, since he is free of the diamond. As far as I know, that doesn't mean he's attached to anyone with a host. So unless this info is foreshadowing that the only way the team can contain him again is to find a way to put the pieces of the black diamond back together and have someone bind themselves to the crystal in order to get Eclipso back inside, and then they need to kill that host. That feels like it could be a possibility, and one that could be set up for a lot of heartbreak. But if that's not the case, like, I'm not sure. Yeah, who would be the host? But I could see that being a possibility.
Yeah, well, again, good points. 'Cause he is free, and he's stronger now because he doesn't need a host. So, or I guess that should be a question. Is he stronger being free than he could be when he fully possesses somebody from within the diamond? I would imagine so, because he's running around the town causing turmoil and gaining strength from all of that. So how do you take the pieces of the black diamond, fuse them together again? Maybe that's what the cosmic staff is going to have to do. And then how do you get him to be trapped within the diamond again? We don't know that process. We haven't seen how that works yet. I don't know if we're going to get more history flashback again. I want the Indiana Jones episode of them going to the island to find out all the history and see what they need to do. Yeah, that's... And we've got a few episodes left, so I guess they could still lead up to that, still build up to that. But yeah, it's a possibility. But how is this young team gonna pull that off?
No idea.
We need Jay Gerrick to visit. I mean, he's fast enough. Maybe he can grab the diamond and whip it around and do whatever he needs to do to get Eclipso in there. I don't know, but I with our team and the powers that they have, I just don't see it happening. And if as dark as this season has been, it could end in tragedy.
Could.
Yeah.
It's on that path.
Yeah. So, to go along with what you're saying, I mean, we get a fill-in of some history from Pat about what happened to them, to the JSA. He explains it that after they killed Bruce Gordon, the JSA falls apart and goes their separate ways. And years pass before the ISA come together, becoming a threat great enough that the JSA has to come back together to team up against them. But it's because of them falling apart and being away from each other for all those years and not getting along, they no longer work well as a team. And that's why they lost the fight to the ISA, which I love. I love this story that we get, this information from Pat, because it connects us full circle all the way back to the season 1 premiere of the opening fight sequence. And that, to me, just really is good writing. To be able to connect it all the way back to that with just a little bit of information, I just absolutely love hearing all of that.
Yeah, I really, really like this scene, too, as you'll see coming up. I thought it was powerfully acted by both Luke and Breck when she starts arguing with them. The pace and the story beats were just on point for the whole scene. The connection is great, as you said, connecting it all the way back to the pilot. Yeah. It was a really, really nice wrap-up, too, for everything in this episode. I just thought it was really nice, especially with some people. I feel like some people might have had questions when they see the pilot and go, oh, how did the ISA beat the entire JSA? And we get that right here, that their spirit was broken. They weren't working as a team. They weren't working in tandem. And we see that they have those qualms to kill their enemy, which the ISA have none. So they were going in pretty much already losing. Yeah, you're so right. It's just and I mean, that is that's 2 seasons worth of time before we got that answer as to how did they lose that fight? Why would they be defeated by the ISA? And now we get it, and it's amazing. It really solidifies this show as with some great writing. The fact, because how many of the other Arrowverse shows just completely go on seasons with forgetting what they just showed us, like season 3 of whatever, something seriously happens and it never gets brought up again. You're like, wait a second, that happened last season. Why hasn't it come around again? Yeah.
Flash is bad for that. And I love that these writers have pulled that all back and made this really strong connection. It's great.
Yeah, and I have a question for you then with
Ooh.
I guess the ending flashback scene. So do you think, since the JSA, we see that Starman has the box with the black diamond when he gets in the car with Pat there at the end of the flashback.
Yeah.
But we also see that the Wizard has the black diamond at the very end of last season, the beginning of this season. So do you think that night that the ISA defeated the JSA, they kind of ransacked their headquarters and took all those things, so they might have got the black diamond in that, victory?
That sounds like a perfectly plausible, occurrence or happenstance after that. Yeah, it would make sense. Why not? They got beat. So they would, it leads to the question, does the Wizard know what the black diamond is? Does the ISA know anything about it at that point? That'd be interesting to find out too. It'd be neat to see more flashbacks leading to after the battle, what happened. So yeah, but it totally makes sense. Why wouldn't that be the only way I could see them getting the diamond for sure?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Good question. Well, that leads us into our favorite scenes. Good discussion, Dreamweaver. Good discussion.
Yeah.
Let's get to our favorite scenes.
Shape out an eagle!
All right. Well, chronologically speaking, mine comes way before yours, so we'll go dive into mine first. And I'm calling it the morale of Pat. I guess it could be the morality of Pat. And this is when Sylvester comes back from his meeting with the Shade and tells Pat what he finds out, and that they have to kill the host. And Pat reminds him that that's not what the JSA do. And I love that scene. I love Pat actually standing up, finally, to Sylvester. And Sylvester, in the moment at least, says, yeah, you're right. So here's that scene.
What happened? Sylvester.
Pat, what we're facing, it's not human.
What is it?
Shade called it a spiritual parasite, like an otherworldly creature. Somehow this Bruce Gordon found it, and now it's possessed him. This thing can make you see it as anything it wants. It can make your nightmares come true. And he told me how we can stop it.
But why would the Shade help us?
I saw fear in his eyes when he told me that he had faced it before. This thing, it murdered men, women, children. He called it real evil. He said the only way to stop it is to kill the host.
Kill the host? Talking about killing another human?
When the host dies, Eclipso will be forced back into the diamond. And as long as we don't touch it, as long as no one does, Eclipso will be powerless inside.
Well, if this thing somehow possessed someone, we gotta exorcise it. We have to save him. That's the code the JSA lives by, right? It's the code you live by.
Yes, of course. You're right, Pat. There's always a way.
Yeah, see, I love that for Pat and the moment, he has with him there. But it's also a good scene because that's where we get some information about Eclipso and some history about him and what he is. So altogether, it was just a good moment.
Yeah, and it was one of the few where Sylvester wasn't being a total jerk to Pat. They were actually having a real conversation there.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, okay, behind the scenes when no one else is around, he likes Pat, he's friends with him, hey, you're my buddy, you're my sidekick, but in front of the team, he's got to be the big leader and treat him like garbage? Like, come on.
Yeah, don't know.
All right, what do you have for us?
Yeah, my favorite scene is way at the very end, we just talked about. But I titled this, What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Dead. So after the flashback of Starman, returning to the car, after they killed Bruce, Pat's explaining the situation to Courtney. And he explains that killing Bruce Gordon ended up killing the killing the JSA. And I think the way he explained that was just really, really poignant and kind of a poetic way. Just explaining how the JSA broke up. There was no final meeting. They just, drifted apart. And I just really love Breck's acting in this scene. It really gets this one for me. And the music drop after Courtney asks what her mom is going to say when she finds out. That one, really, the icing on the cake there of setting up a really emotional ending to this episode.
Yeah, I love that musical transition into a dramatic scene, again, to emphasize the emotion, the powerful and depressing emotion that we get. Like you, again, full circle back to what you said, Eclipso is winning right now. So, yeah, beautiful scene. So here it is.
There was no last meeting. There was no decision to break up. Everyone just drifted away after that. I kept coming around, though, hoping to see if any of them showed up around the table. Nobody did. Not until the ISA reformed, but, that was a lot of years later. And even when the JSA got back together, they were never the same. They were broken. And that's why the ISA won in the end. Killing Bruce Gordon. When the JSA did that, it wound up killing them.
We promised. No more secrets.
I know, Cole.
You've been lying to me for weeks, Pat. Lying while my friends were being hurt and destroyed by Eclipso. What's my mom going to say?
She knows.
It cut you wide open. It doesn't take much for a human to break a world of emotions. And there's only so much that your heart can take. I know it's wrong, but it's just what it is. Don't let it stop your confidence. No, I can't watch it go down like this. Down like this.
Oh, man. See, this show is getting good at putting in the right music to match the scene and getting you to feel what they want you to feel. It's like last week when I said that moment with Rick after his uncle was just a complete ass to him and he goes out to the woods and they play that musical montage. Exactly the same thing here. And it just really, bam, it hits hard. Oh.
Yeah, it's a heavy scene, but I thought it was beautifully acted. That's some really, really good writing right there.
Yeah, on both their parts too. They both have that quiver in their voice, and the emotion is cracking. It's good stuff. Good scenes this week. All right, let's get moving on. If you guys would like to support the show, you can check out our Patreon account. This is how you do that.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends.
like Dreamweaver does. She supports the podcast, and we totally appreciate it. And you guys, you supporters out there, you guys are probably wondering, what about those shirts? You guys promised us shirts a long time ago. Well, I do have an update for that. We have been struggling with t-shirt websites. We're on our 4th one now. I've created the shirts, got our logos in, got everything, the whole process done, creation and everything. Go to order them, and it completes our order and says, yep, your order is good. Here's your receipt number. You've paid for it. It'll take whatever 3 to 4 weeks to deliver. And I'll wait a couple days, and then I get an email, and it says, oh, due to copyright infringement, you guys are using logos and stuff. We can't print your shirts. And I get on the line with them, and I'm arguing with them, and they just refuse to do it because on our new logo, which you see on our Facebook page and stuff, we have the Tomorrow's Legends logo with our happy faces, and underneath it, we've got Superman, Stargirl, and Legend of Tomorrow to show you guys what shows we're talking about. And what drives me crazy is we've printed, you guys see, well, you can't see right now, but you see behind me, I've got a new poster on the wall of our logo. I'm able to print canvas prints, posters, business cards, and other printing materials, no issues. But a t-shirt company has an issue. So we've been jumping through hoops like crazy trying to get it to go, and it just hasn't. So this is what's been happening for the last few weeks. And I'm in our 5th one right now. I've just sent them the thing. Once again, they're saying, yep, the order is good. We'll let you know when it's ready to ship. So we'll find out yet again. If it doesn't work, we're going to have to redesign our logo and come up with something that they're willing to print. It's just strange. So I apologize, guys, but that's what's been happening. We're trying to figure it out. We just can't get them to print shirts. They'll print everything else, but not shirts, and it makes no sense. So on that happy note, let's get into some feedback.
Don't keep it to yourself now. Come on, baby, talk to us. It's feedback, yeah.
You almost started dancing. I saw that.
I did. You say yeah.
X-Force and Harley dance every time I play those clips. It's hilarious. So kicking it off, speaking of X-Force, he managed to send in some feedback, and let's hear what he has to say.
Hello, Cosmic Crew. It's Jeff, X-Force 11, reporting from somewhere in the galaxy. I want to give this episode 9 Shadows of the Past. I really thought this was a good follow-up to last week's episode in the fact we see just how powerful Eclipso is. It was really cool getting to see Icicle and Icicle Jr. in full villain mode in this episode, even though it was Eclipso. It was great to see flashbacks and to really understand now why the JSA was broken and why they were ultimately defeated by the ISA. And it just shows that you've got to have truth-telling and unity within the group. And I think that really speaks to having the heart of the group, that Pat was truly, while not a part of the original JSA, he was the heart and the morals of the group. And because that was not listened to, they fell. And so I'm wondering what it's going to take in this JSA to bring the group back together, to unite them, and to have them listen to the heart of the group. And so I'm really excited about what's next. But I really, really hope this is not all we're going to see of Jay Gerrick in this season, because that's just not enough. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force is out.
It's such a weird feeling hearing my co-host be relegated back to feedback, after, especially with Harley when we've been together for 7 seasons now. But good thoughts, X-Force. It's I like what he said about Pat being the center of morale and the heart of the team, and because they didn't listen to him, they fell apart. That's a really good point to make. That's a big part of the reason why they didn't respect him his ideas and what he had to say, and it led to them falling apart. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I think you may be a little disappointed that we don't get any more Jay in the season, but here's hoping in further seasons we do.
Well, yeah, I mean, as fans, what you guys need to do is tweet like crazy to the Stargirl Twitter account and John Wesley Shipp's account. Just go crazy on it, saying how much you loved seeing him on the show and he needs to be here in future seasons. And you know, that's the kind of thing that gets writers and producers, you know, paying attention. So definitely do that. All right, next up is an email from Comic Geek Kev, and he says, "Hey, Legends, this show continues to pick up the pace. I wasn't as down on the first couple episodes as Flash, but there has definitely been an improvement over these last several shows. I thought everything with Courtney's family was great. Everybody's Eclipso moments were really well done. I don't know at this point if Icicle is back or not. Could all the little hints before have been Eclipso? Is it possible the other moments were Icicle, but this car encounter was Eclipso tapping into Barb's fear that Icicle is back? Is it possible I'm reading way too much into this? Yes, it's possible." Again, and that's how good this show is. What was that?
Said, so did we, so it's okay.
Yeah. Whatever happened to Shade? He obviously still has a connection to Barb. It'll be interesting to see where they go with him. I even thought Mike's scene with Cameron was good. I really didn't even notice that none of the other young JSA characters made an appearance. That's true.
It's true.
We didn't even see Beth or Yolanda, or, I mean, we know why. Again, I told you, Yolanda and Rick, they're going to be gone for a couple episodes, so. But Beth wasn't around. We just heard. Did we hear her on the phone?
You can slightly. It was kind of inaudible, but you could tell Beth was on the line. Yeah.
All right. He goes on, and the opening scene with Bruce used the Eclipso voice pretty effectively. When he talked about Bruce's girlfriend or ex or whatever, the way he said her body was really creepy. It all was, but that was even more so than the rest. I loved that they gave him the Eclipso face, and as always, the little boy just makes everything about Eclipso worse, in a good way. Now, the not so great. Pretty much everything with the original JSA was not great. A lot of the writing is just bad, and the acting wasn't much better. I get that Pat was supposed to be much younger and younger than the rest of the JSA, but he comes off really strangely at the funeral scene. Why does Starman need a personal driver? Why is Johnny Thunder at the funeral, but back at the HQ, they need Pat to break the tie because there's only 4? Well, where's Johnny? That's a good point. Totally forgot about him being there. Once again, Ethan Embry in that wig looks awful. It seems like Shade knew more about Eclipso even back then. I did like the dilemma of whether they could kill the host or not. So often in comics and the shows and movies they spawn, killing just happens. Very often just in battle. There isn't a lot of thought given to it. This show has not only given us a look at what happens when someone takes a life in battle, Yolanda, but now gives us the morale dilemma of having to make that decision and what happens when it gets carried out. Our little show is growing up. Yeah, well said. It was cool to at least get name drops of the Hawks, Green Lantern, Dr. Fate, and the Spectre. I feel like I'm forgetting someone. And it was great to see Jay. I hope that's not all we're going to see of him. I was hoping we would see him present day. Us too. It would have been nice to see the JSA in action, but I'm hoping the lack of tons of effects in the episode means they're saving the budget for epic fight to come. I'm giving this episode 8.75 out of 10 popsicles. The family stuff was great. The JSA parts were a letdown for me. Until next time, Comic Geek Kev.
Ooh, it's a burn on the popsicle. It's a hard part there.
I kind of just glazed over it, didn't I? But yeah, that poor dog got creamsicled. I don't know. Yeah, holy. They didn't show it though, so the animal rights people could just stay quiet.
That was good.
All right, next up is an email from your counterpart, Perry White. I thought it'd be fun if you read Perry's email. Take her away.
All right. Yep. Perry White here with feedback for Stargirl Summer School Chapter 9, or as it should have been titled, Stargirl Return of the Dead Guy. Like this cold medicine I'm taking, this episode was hard to swallow, but in a good way. This season has really handled the horror genre well, in my opinion. But I have so many of the questions in my Starfire from Teen Titans voice. Can't quite get there. First, did Pat and Barb not know that Yolanda killed Brainwave? I know the other kids didn't know, but I can't remember if Pat and Barb knew. The answer to that question greatly colors how we view the secret they kept from Courtney.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember if they revealed that to at least Pat.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, he goes on. If they knew, then was there really reason to keep their secret? I mean, it's not like Pat played an active role in killing Bruce Gordon. If they didn't know, it makes sense they'd keep the secret, but it would not explain Courtney's reaction if she was keeping a similar secret. Truth is, I'm not feeling well enough or have the time to research that, but I imagine you guys have. Or not.
Yeah, how would that affect Courtney's reaction if... Yeah, that's that one I'd have to think about for a bit, Barry.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if Courtney did tell Pat or not. At least
I don't know
after
if we
that
saw
episode.
It. Yeah, I don't know if we saw that she did.
Yeah, if it did, it happened off screen.
Yeah,
I would have to go back and watch to see if he mentions it at all.
Interesting.
All right. Second query. Is Eclipso currently possessing someone, perhaps that little kid he keeps turning into? If so, the show would make a dark turn even for DC if they narratively explored killing a child. If it's not the kid, it was never really clear if he took possession of a host. It should have been Cindy, in my opinion. Well, for that one, the kid is a young Bruce Gordon.
Is it?
As far as I know.
Okay, because I was gonna say, where did this kid come from? Because in the premiere of this season, he just shows up at the door of Dr. McNider's daughter there, Rebecca. So where did that kid come from?
He calls himself Bruce in that scene. He says, "My name's Bruce."
Okay.
And then there's also in this episode, there is going back all the way to the very first scene in Bruce's office. There is a picture of a young boy, Bruce, holding maps. It's a picture sitting on his desk, and it's actually Milo in that picture.
Oh, so... Okay, so the question is Eclipso making himself look like young Bruce, or did he possess... No, because he wouldn't have possessed young Bruce all those years, because Bruce had to go to the island to find him, yada yada. So he's making himself look like young Bruce.
Yeah, that is what I'm thinking.
Why?
Is that's kind of the form he likes taking because no one suspects a child.
Yes, that's my thoughts exactly. So he can take a form. So to answer Perry's question, then, has he possessed anybody currently? I don't think so. I think he's out and about. He takes form of the kid when he needs to, but then he just disappears into whatever he hides in, the weather, the smoke, I don't know.
Right. We've seen him partially possess Cindy, but she is somewhere right now.
Yeah.
So I don't think he has a host at the moment.
Okay.
All right. Third query. When did the staff become the Sword of Omens? Essentially solving any plot point that arises. Now it can snap folks out of their hallucinations, even while underpowered. I'd like an explanation of the staff's powers. Maybe Joel McHale will provide that in the coming season.
Just simply because you mentioned the Sword of Omens, I love that line, but I don't like that you're kind of mocking it. I mean, Thundercats is my favorite cartoon ever, but it's funny. Yeah, when did the staff become the Sword of Omens? I mean, if she holds it up, that little curve at the top of the staff, and looks through it and says, "Give me sight beyond sight," then we're done for.
Fourth question. It was a hallucination, but it's been pretty consistent that the OG JSA treated Pat pretty poorly. Wildcat is a total douche, at least in the hallucination. That sucks arse. Pat deserved better. This isn't a question, but Amy Smart and Neil Jackson have incredible chemistry. I love their scenes together. We need more. Anyway, I give this episode 9.5 appropriate gas moments out of 10.
Yeah, I'm with you. They have good scenes together. Neil Jackson and Amy Smart. That seems to bring Amy's acting out every time she's with him, because she's been kind of mechanical to me. Not really expressing and emoting emotion, but as soon as she's with him, that's when she really seems to open up. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. Wildcat, I think, is that much of an ass. He, in previous flashback scenes, he still seemed to be that way. So, yeah. You're right. Pat deserves better.
Yeah.
Awesome thoughts as always. Next up is Dad L, and he says, hello, Cosmic Crew. What a difficult episode to watch. The new JSA has been torn apart. Now our main family is being torn apart. Eclipso is setting himself up for an easy victory. How will our heroes ultimately prevail? How will they keep their morale center, unlike the original JSA? And wasn't that a huge reveal? The downfall of the JSA was precipitated by the decision to end Bruce Gordon? I've always thought of the JSA as the squeaky clean heroes of the Golden Age, but this show has taken a much more conflicted approach. It's interesting to note the parallels between Yolanda's struggles with the consequences of her actions and how the JSA fell apart. Hopefully our team can learn from past mistakes. Yeah.
Good points.
I knocked my rating down a little due to the lack of John Wesley Shipp. It was great to see him as Jay Gerrick again, but I think he could have been more effectively utilized. However, this was already a packed episode. Perhaps he'll show up again. Sadly, not this season.
That's a pattern. Everybody wants more John Wesley Shipp.
Yeah, I'm telling you, get on the Twitter, man. Get going. My rating is 9 episodes down. We have 4 left to go. Dad L, last father of Krypton. Yeah, they got a lot to wrap up because at the moment, Eclipso is easily winning. And I mean, look at how this episode ended. Pat and Courtney and Barbara and Michael, they're falling apart. How are they going to, right their own ship and get things going in time for the season finale? And maybe this show's writers are going to do something unlike all the other shows. They're not going to wrap it up at the end. Maybe we're going to have a really depressing ending, and it's not until next season that we get to see them try to fix it. And that would be a big turn for sure.
That would. Yeah. I'm not sure which way they're going to go.
Because like he says, 4 episodes left, and we're nowhere near solving it or even close to victory. And if they try to wrap it up too fast, like they did in the season 1 finale, I hope they've learned their lesson, because I don't want to see that.
Yeah, yeah, that one that was a little packed, a little too much quick of a wrap up.
Yeah, so hopefully they've learned their lesson and will not do that this time. But again, I don't know how they're going to solve it. So. All right, awesome thoughts, everybody. Great feedback as always. If you'd like to be part of the show, just listen to this.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to Tomorrow's Legends Podcast at gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at Tomorrow's Legends. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
All right, that wraps us up, and there you go, Dreamweaver, Miss Abbey. You get to see how this show works behind the scenes. Are you going to keep our secrets?
Yes, I'll keep your secrets for you.
Because what they're going to hear at the full production, they're not going to know what went on behind the scenes. So
no.
Well, it was fun having you on the show. I feel like we're almost 2 peas in a pod again. So I just want to say thank you so much for stepping in and filling in for X-Force.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun talking about this with more than my couple minutes of feedback.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's glad to get you on here and be able to share your thoughts and respond to what I'm saying. And yeah, no, you did great. I think you're well on your way to launching your own podcast. It's going to be good. So anybody who watches now, tell us about that. What show are you going to be covering? Tell us about your podcast where people can actually check you out. Yes, so I have my own podcast covering another CW show, the new Nancy Drew show that's on CW. And when I say new, it's actually going into its 3rd season, so it's not particularly new. But the podcast is new. Right. So when this episode drops, it'll be on Friday. So that's actually when season 3 of Nancy Drew starts back up, Friday night at 9 p.m. And so my podcast is called The Drew Crew Review, because Drew Crew is kind of like the name for
the Nancy Drew fans, and it's not like the original books, if you're familiar with those. So it honors and it pays homage to the original material, but it takes the characters into, modern day. It matures them up and places them into a different setting. The supernatural is real in the show. If you like a little bit of horror vibes, like Stargirl's kind of thrown out right now, it does some supernatural horror vibes.
Oh, cool.
At the heart of the mysteries. But it also uses the supernatural to explore, our own fears and what haunts us as humans, and kind of takes a look at mental health, which is something that I really, really like narratively.
Yeah.
So check it out if you want to. If you're watching that show, check out our show. We're on all the streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're starting that back up with actual live episodes. We've been doing a rewatch over the hiatus, but you can send feedback into us too.
Awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun. So Nancy Drew viewers out there, check it all out and be part of Dreamweaver's show here. Do you guys have nicknames? Are you just Abbey over there?
Yeah, no nicknames. I'm just Abbey over there. But we have a fun time. I do all the tech stuff. We do a lot of similar segments and breakdowns. And if you're also a Nancy Drew fan and not a part of the conversation on, Twitter or social media, get on there. If you use the Nancy Drew hashtags, a lot of the writers and the actors are very active over there. So it's a fun time if you're live tweeting with us. I've got writers and some of the actors that follow me on my account on Twitter. So it's a fun time if you want to be a part of that community.
Oh. Look at you getting into the game deep. That's awesome if you can get connections like that and have the writers and the actors actually interact with you. That is a very difficult thing to get going. So yeah, if you have that kind of success, you're going places. That's cool. Good stuff. Well, once again, I just want to say thanks for being on the show with me here. All I got coming up, you guys know I like to promote Cybercast a little bit. I've almost got that episode ready to release where I talk to a psychic medium, and I've got a new interview coming up next week where I'm talking to another psychic medium, somebody that can tap into the spirit world and actually talk to people that have passed on. It is crazy. His name is Matthew Stapley. I'll be interviewing him and having a good conversation with him, so I'll let you guys know when that one is out. That's all I got for you guys. Have a good rest of your week. This is The Flash, signing off.
And this is Dreamweaver. Until next time.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network.